side is, the violence against each other, and importantly, the state violence through ethnic cleansing. Since 2000, 40% of Bed-Stuy is gone. All these Black people who love this neighborhood, brag about it, ended up somewhere else. We don't know where they went, but they had to leave. And our position is, if we're not organized, then there will be no Black people left in Bed-Stuy. A few weeks ago, we had a workshop on ethnic cleansing, and we invited the community here to share ideas and how we could stop the tide. Today, we invited you back here to discuss how this same ethnic cleansing is also materialized and furthered through police violence. We have assembled some experienced attorneys. We're going to invite to the stage Roger, Malik, and Mr. Downing. Please come to the stage, and we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna ask the experts, how do we deal with police in the streets? Because as we know, we have rights on paper, but somehow we've been stopped by the police, and all of those rights are out the window. So we're here today to share some ideas, and we're looking forward to having a discussion with you. Thank you for coming.
So before we get started, I'll do, first of all, my name is Malik Callender. I'm a criminal defense attorney with the Lewars Society out in Queens. And so before we get started, what I'll do is I want to just first lay out, the various levels of encounters that you may experience with police on the street. There's actually 4 levels, and those 4 levels was established in a Seminole case, People versus Du Bois, a 1976 Court of Appeals case, where this young man on his way home, around 12 o'clock in the morning, him and the police is coming towards him. He's about 30, 40 feet from the police. And he crosses the street, and the police cross with him and stops him and asked him where, it's a quote unquote neighborhood of high drug incidents, and the police asked him where he's coming from. He answers the police question. One of the officers claimed they see a bulge in his waist, asked him to open his coat. And saw the butt of a gun handle and retrieved his .38. So he loses on the two lower courts, in criminal court and court, say appellate level. He loses, and he goes to the Court of Appeals, and he loses there as well. The court found that they established 4 levels in terms of whether or not the court answered the question whether without any indicators of criminality can the police approach a private citizen on the street and request information. And they established 4 levels. And I'll start with the level 4 and work backwards. Level 4 says that the police must have probable cause to arrest. So the police stops you and immediately detains you, puts handcuffs on you. They need probable cause to do that. And pretty much what that is that there's probably more likely than not that a crime was committed, and that you, the individual that's being seized, being detained, committed that crime. And that's usually in cases where the police actually observed, or there was just a shooting, and somebody pointed you out on the block, hey, that guy right there, with that shirt on, he just shot so and so, and so those are cases, where the level of intrusion is one where, you're detained, the liberty of movement is restricted, and then so at that level, there's actually a crime that's been committed. At level 3, reasonable suspicion, at that level, there's the appearance of a crime, So they use the reasonable standard at that level, where they, based on the totality of the circumstances, they ask the question whether or not, based on all the facts that the police have, all the knowledge and facts that they have at their disposal, where they could make reasonable inferences that a crime is actually in the process of taking place, or getting ready to, or happened already, or is getting ready to happen. Examples of that is that, you're in a neighborhood, it may or may not be a neighborhood of high level of context, but you have a hanger, you're opening a car door, you open your car door with a hanger. Is it reasonable that under those circumstances that, is it reasonable to infer that there's a crime, taking place? So the police may be able to approach you under those circumstances and ask you, hey, what are you doing? If for instance, then you were to show the police, I like my keys in the car, or, I lost my keys, I'm trying to get into the car, and you were able to show the police your driver's license, everything matches, then the questioning should cease, and you have a right not to ask the police for any beyond that. However, the police may still continue. And you have a right not to beyond that. But once you're able to answer their inquiries to show that this is in fact your car, and there are many other examples we can give, but that's just one example I can think of off the top of my head. The second level, so those two levels, level 3 and level 4, those are, the level of intrusion is extremely high. Level 4, of course, you're being arrested, you're being seized. Level 3, you're not free to leave. You're being stopped and you're being questioned when there's reasonable suspicion. So there's a high level of intrusion there. And it may amount to a seizure. Because, it all depends on the length of the question. Were you able to satisfy and quell? Oh, seizure. Well, seizure is where, there's a significant interruption of your liberty of movement. That can happen when for instance, you're at a parking lot, police come up behind you and block you and you can't leave. That's a seizure. Oh, you may not have it, police may stop you on the street, and 3 or 4 police officers may surround you, and their hands are on their pistol, and they're talking to you. They're asking you very accusatory questions, very intimidating. That may be that would be considered a constructive seizure, right? So that's also a seizure, and that can happen at level 3 or level 4. Level 2 is a common law inquiry for information. Police approach you to request information, and again, at each of these levels, the police have to articulate some reasoning for, some credible, objective reasoning for stopping you to require information. At level 2, where where common law right of inquiry, where there's some founded suspicion that criminal activity is afoot. Police see you walking down the street, it's 10 o'clock at night, you have a TV on your shoulder. Hey, is that yours? You know, that question, you know, is accusatory, you know, the response can lead to you incriminating yourself. You have a right not to answer the police at that level. You can walk away, you know. But of course, in the real world, you know, that's not, you know, the police, you know, for the police, if you refuse to answer and walk away, the police is, you know, the response most of the time is going to be, I'm talking to you. They get offended, you know. But that is your right. If they're all they're doing is you have a right. You may choose to, you know, this is mine. I'm going on my way home. But you have a right not to answer the police and walk away. If the questioning becomes if the accusatory nature of the questioning becomes broader, then, you know, they're taking it now to a level 3. But you have under the level 3 and level 4 are the only times that the police can physically stop you. Either probable cause or reasonable suspicion. The common law inquiry is just that, common law inquiry. And again, the common law inquiry, like level 3 with reasonable suspicion, is based on the facts that's available to the police, whether or not reasonable inferences can be made that, you know, that some degree of criminality is afoot, right? And level 1 is just the police can, level 1 is where it says the police can request information based on some objective, credible reason. They're for information. There's a little child lost, the police in the street, they can ask you, hey, do you know who the parents of the child is? And where we see level 1 get played out a lot is in housing, NYCHA housing, and some private buildings where they have a relationship with the police, where they have joined the forces with the police, and they have this no trespassing, no trespassing policy. They go in and they give police the authority to come into the building. So, you know, the police can ask you. The police at that level, the police can ask you. You know, especially you see a lot of NYCHA buildings. You know, do you live here? Again, you can refuse to answer the police at that level. You know, you may choose to answer them and say, yeah, I live here, or I was with a friend, but you can choose to answer the police. If they prevent you, if they try to restrict your movement, then you can ask them, am I being detained? Am I under arrest? You know, can I leave? You know, and if they say, no, you can't leave, then it's a level 3 now. You know, they have to justify what's the reasonable suspicion. You know, you being in the building, you know, no indicators of any criminality is not sufficient to justify level 3 or level 4. You know, you need for level 3 or level 4, you have to have, you know, more credible facts, information to justify the level 4 arrest, which is probable cause, and the level 3 stop to inquire, which is reasonable suspicion. Level 1 is just that, you know, request for information, and you can choose to not answer, ignore the police, and walk away. Of course, most of the time they get offended when you do that, and they take it to another level. And all you have to say is, am I being stopped? Am I being seized? Am I being arrested? Am I free to leave? That's the only things you need to say, you know. And if, you know, once you're seized, whether it's physical seizure or constructive seizure, you have a whole bunch of rights that kick in, you know, under the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendment, especially the 5th and 6th, right? Not incriminate yourself. The right to be Mirandized before being questioned any further. The right to an attorney. So yeah, Miranda, that came from another case. Miranda was what, the 60s? Yeah, Miranda was in the 60s. And it basically established the rule that, you know, once you're seized by the police, you know, that the Miranda rights attaches, you know, and it's pretty much you have a right to an attorney, you have a right to silence, to stay silent, you have a right not to correct yourself.
Y'all watch the TV show. What do they say? Go ahead, say it. What do they say?
Anything you say will be held against you.
That's against you, yeah, what else?
Will. Right. Will. They can and will.
Right. What else?
Right to remain silent.
Yeah, we got that one.
Right for attorney.
Yes.
Anything you say can and will be used against you before the law.
So pretty much what they're saying is pretty much that's the Fifth and Sixth Amendment, right? You know, so those are the four levels of interactions that you can encounter with the police. That's what, in terms of how you respond to that, that's what it says on the paper. But however, you know, in the real world, real life scenarios, it all, you know, it sometimes plays out a little differently.
Yeah, my name's King Downey. I'm also a lawyer. My work has been a little different from these two who have done most of their work in the courts. Mine has been working with communities to really do three things. One, as we're doing today, to learn what your rights are. Second, to document abuses by the police. Anybody heard the word racial profiling? Anybody know that word? You know that word? Raise your hand if you feel you've ever been or know somebody that's been racially profiled. Look at that brother back there has both his feet up. Gotcha. I got you. Anyway, we found out all over the country that police were doing this, and they were doing this because they, in their minds, decided that most crime happens in black communities and that most drug users were black and brown. So we had to go through the statistics and found out that all groups use drugs in equal amounts and sell drugs in equal amounts. So why were they targeting black communities? Anybody have an idea?
Racism.
Huh?
Racism.
There you go, racism. And they didn't want to disrupt their own people in their own neighborhoods. And sometimes they were involved in the drug trade themselves. So we researched that and came up with the kind of data that showed what the police were actually doing, and then we tried to harm people in their minds with knowing what their rights are and being able to push back. So somebody would pass these out. And at some point, after Roger, we're gonna do a little role play, and these books are gonna be your guide to look at some scenarios and decide what happened there, what was the people's rights, and what rights were violated by the police. Anybody here? Short story. Anybody here have a short story about a time they thought their rights were violated by the police? Notice I said short story. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, one time the cops stopped me and tried to pin a bogus robbery charge on me.
How did they do that? They approached you and what did they say?
Yeah, they said I fit the description of somebody that committed a robbery. I had a sheet of paper on me to show my whereabouts on the date of the event the robbery was supposed to the place. It was on Thursday. And documented evidence where I was on Thursday. They said, oh, no, it was on Tuesday. They changed it to Tuesday. It happened on Tuesday. I eventually beat it.
You eventually?
I eventually beat it. I got arrested on it, but I eventually beat it.
So you got arrested and then what happened?
You know, it came out that what they did, how they switched it. You know, I showed evidence of where I was on Thursday, and then they changed it. No, it happened on Tuesday. You know, the judge put on bogus.
You think that called for a celebration when your rights are violated and we get out of those cases?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course. Of course. Oh, okay. Anybody else have a story? Go ahead.
Many moons ago, in my early 20s, back in the 80s, I was going to Queens College. it was busting out children of color through all the areas of the city. I was leaving Queens
How old were
College.
you?
I was 22. I was leaving Queens College one afternoon. I didn't have no funds. So I said, let me walk to the subway station. And I started to walk, and the area that I was walking was predominantly Caucasian. So as I was walking, NYPD saw me and they stopped me. They said, why you walking through this area? I said, I'm on my way to the subway station. And I didn't have no funds.
Just speak up a little,
Yeah.
use your big voice.
I didn't have no funds to take the transportation. So they said, you got your home registration card, because there was a Vietnam War going on. I said, no, I don't have my
Draft card.
Yeah. So they said, get one. And they said, okay, keep going on keep up walking.
So, we just heard the 4 levels. What level was that?
Probable cause.
Probable cause means that it was more likely than not that you were in the midst of committing a crime? Is that what you feel the situation?
His job is to smash the limitations and run. Adopt to it.
Reasonable?
There was no, they're just asking.
Listen, this dialogue is really great. We want to get this, so if you speak up a little bit. Yeah, go
I
ahead.
think
Say it loud.
that's level 1. I still observe like them in the stories, like still rude and like the whole thing is all wrong, but that's just they were asking rude questions.
So why wasn't it reasonable suspicion?
He was just a man walking somewhere. There's no, why would anyone, only someone that's like looking for trouble himself. Like, why don't see how, I know it's there and it's like very much something happens all the time, unfortunately, but even if, it's best not to say, but like, that's rude on them though, like they're like bothering this man just walking somewhere.
Racial profile.
Racial profile.
Did anybody, when I was asking these questions, did anybody start flipping through the book that we gave you to see whether there's any guidance there? That's why we're giving it to you. It's an handbook to help you come up with the answers for some of this. So now it was level 1. So when they came up to you, what were you required to do, if anything?
When they spoke to me, why you walking through the neighborhood, I stopped. I stopped walking. I stopped walking.
Did you say anything?
No.
Did you explain?
No, and they asked me questions, why was I walking through the neighborhood? I told them I didn't have the funds to take the train.
So you did answer the question.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I'm not judging. I'm just trying to figure out what happened. So you answered the question. Did you have to answer?
I did answer. I told them that I didn't have the funds.
Did you have to?
No.
Okay.
No.
Did you feel like at that time that you could not answer?
At that time, I didn't feel that I didn't have to answer.
How do you feel now?
I feel that I didn't have to answer.
So suppose that's me walking up to you and I say, hey, this is a neighborhood where you don't live. What are you doing walking around here?
I just keep walking.
Okay. And if they get in front of you and start asking you questions,
then I would have to see that it's escalating, so I just have to respond.
or, yeah, you could respond. What's one thing you could say without giving up any information?
why are you stopping?
Okay, that's a good one. You said because you're acting suspicious in a suspicious area.
Am I under arrest?
Who said that? Okay, can we take it down, ask him a question, or take it down a little?
Okay, what he said.
Yeah, oh yeah, say it loud.
Am I under arrest?
No, but you still have to stay here,
Why?
because I'm the law.
Well, I'm leaving.
Oh wait, we almost got it. Leave was the word we're looking for. So what you might say is, am I free to go? And has anybody else ever had a story where, well, the hands went up, you hear the question, they're all ready to talk. Whatever you say, I'm ready to answer. I want to know if anybody has ever been in a situation where they told the police, am I free to go? And tell me what happened next. Anybody? Yeah, go ahead.
So I asked them, like, a lot of police, like, just surrounded me, I guess that's season, because I was, like, yelling something crazy when I lived in my claims. And granted, I am aware of racial profile and, like, whatever, but just saying, they asked me, I don't know, I was, like, seeing it all, and then, but at one point I asked, like, am I free to go, and they were like, they had my ID. So these are questions, like, I really think are important to ask, like, does anyone actually have to give them their ID? Am I allowed to ask if they have any evidence of a crime? Because, like, what am I talking about? And then it's like, so back then, though, I was just, like, kept my mouth shut at a certain time and just stared at them and, like, waited to get my ID back and at home. But that's my personal situation, but, it's happened.
Okay, we just brought up a point. Do you have to say who you are? Do you have to show an ID? Like, two different questions. How many people think you have to say who you are? Put your arms up in the air, act like you just don't care. Let's see
I
some
speak for
hands down.
myself, though, like, I don't.
Well, I'm only asking what you think. Yes. How many people think you have to show your ID? Put them up. Put them up. Okay. Somebody who had their arm up, explain why you have to show your ID. No, all the way in the back. I remember seeing your arm, but I don't remember if it was on the video.
Well, that's because in the situations I've been where I had to show ID, it was always more than one officer, and you know it's not all the time, but especially when I was younger, I would always have this fear of if I didn't show my ID, then they would say what's that word? I was resistant. In that type, like I had that fear, I always had that fear in me when I was younger, like they would say I was resistant if I didn't show them ID. That type of time.
Yeah, so you had a legitimate point of view. You thought I have to do this because I'm in fear of what they can do.
Yes.
But what do you
Especially
think?
being outnumbered.
Do you think you're required to do that?
No, but it was just out of fear.
No, I mean now.
Now?
Yeah. How do you
I'm actually unsure, I'll be honest.
Anybody else not sure whether they have to identify themselves or show their IDs? Anybody not sure? Okay.
Well, I'm thinking, like, if it's like
Louder.
if it's probable cause or reasonable suspicion, I'm guessing yes. But if it's level 1 or 2, I would say no. So I suppose it would be very much situational. So if they say, oh, so-and-so happened and we're just about to find so-and-so, would you mind showing us your ID? I would say absolutely yes, because,
Okay.
but that's my guess.
Well, it's a good guess in some states, and in other states, it's not clear. So there are about 25 states that have now required people to identify themselves in situations where there's reasonable suspicion of probable cause. Lucky for us, New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut are not those kinds of states. So you don't have to. But many people think they do for the reason the brother was talking about, or for the reasons that you thought. Now, if you get, I'll get to you in a second. If you have a situation where they're asking for ID and you don't show it, you may end up going downtown. So what we do is we tell you what your rights are. We don't tell you that you have to stand up for your rights every time, but we're not going to come here and tell you, don't talk back to the police. Put your hands where you see it. We're going to tell you what your rights are, and then you decide how you want to deal with the situation. You may be feeling like I've had enough, and I'm not putting up with this shit. So that's how we're going to advise you. So these 3 states, that's not required. Now they may take your ID if they search you as part of an arrest, but here you don't have to.
The other thing is that when you get stopped like that, there's not going to be a sign that says this is level 4, level 3, level 2. You're not going to know initially what it is. You may ask, why are you stopping it? It'll give you an indication of what's happening. And then from there, so you have to play it by ear. You go through your head as well, but it's level 4, it's level 3. That's not going to be the first. People get nervous, when the police stop them. Even though you haven't done anything, you know that if you're Black, Latino in New York City, anything can happen when the police stop you. So it's normal for you to just feel kind of nervous. So you're not going to go through this checklist. What you're going to try and hear is, why are they stopping you? And then you make an assessment. If they say, we want to see your ID. One thing is on paper, the other thing is just common sense. Particularly if you're in a situation where when you have the ID. Sometimes they're doing it just to get information, and that's not supposed to be the basis. I don't know, have they changed that thing where the police, there was going to be a procedure where every time the police stop somebody, they had to document it. Adams was supposed to, and they were supposed to be doing it on their phone. That was one way of doing it. I'm just not sure if you know if that ever went through. That's something we have to find out. But that was one way to sort of counter them just randomly stopping it. So it's really, it's common sense, and it's also, if you're like, he was by himself over there in that part of Queens, you make an assessment. If it gets stopped on the corner of Nostrand and Fulton, and there's a bunch of folks, you might want to say, well, you say, why are you stopping me? You say it loud enough so people can hear it, so to see what's going on. They're more likely to back up if nothing else, if they don't have any basis aside from you're a Black person, they want to stop. So it requires a combination of one, knowing what your rights are technically, and then an assessment of what's the situation and where. If at some point you're arrested, you get to the precinct, then you've got to give them out some identification. Because if you're going to be arrested, they're not going to start the process until you present them with some ID or name or something. And then you'll just be, if it normally takes 24 hours, it'll take 24 hours plus however long it takes for you to give them that information.
Since you brought up something here, so the comment said we are past the time for description. The time is now for prescription. And so we can talk about situations where the police have stopped people. We can talk about it later. We can do something about it. So he just talked about what would happen if somebody got stopped, and depending on where they are. So we're going to deputize you all today to become part of that movement of people who are on the corner that keep the police from going all the way through what they want to do. And this has been the new weapon. Since this has come along, you know all the stories where things have been documented. How many times have you seen somebody stop and you just walk by? I've done it. I don't do it anymore. Does anybody admit that? They just walk by. Is anybody who has seen a stop now, whenever they see a stop, they stop for a second and evaluate the situation and see what's going on? Is there anybody who has seen a situation like that and actually pulled out their camera, even if they didn't actually shoot?
I be feeling like that's feeling kind of nervous when I take my phone out because you want to report the police, but you don't want to antagonize either. That's all.
Well, we're only telling you what your rights are. You know, if you feel like antagonized, then don't take the step. But anybody know the rule about you have a right to videotape the police? Yeah.
I think there's a distance requirement in terms of approaching them doing that.
Take a shot at. I shouldn't use that word. Take an educated guess.
15, 30 feet.
I heard somebody say 6. How many say 6? I heard somebody say 15. How many say 15? I heard somebody say 30. How many think 30? That's a little too far. Yeah. So there is no number, there's no magic numbers. Reasonable distance. Anybody have an idea what a reasonable distance would be? Like what would unreasonable be? What would the concern be if it was an unreasonable distance?
In their face or 30 feet.
In their face, somebody said obstruct. Who said obstruct?
I said if you're touching somebody.
So the idea is that if you're far enough away that you can't get into the mix. You can't get your hands on somebody, you can't leap in there. I'm not talking about Superman or Spider-Man, I'm just talking about a reasonable person. So you might even be able to, you know, where it's going on, be on the other side of this table. So just
It's another one of those situations that you have to play by ear, right, Paul?
Yes.
Right. You wanted to tell folks what happened last week. We were doing a distribution for a program around reparations, and the police had stopped this person who apparently had obviously mental difficulties, but they had jammed him up against the wall and had cuffed him. And I think everybody in the street's response was, whatever the basis for you stopping him or arresting him, they said they weren't arresting him, they said they were going to take him to the hospital. The way they were treating him was awful. He didn't have to be treated like that. So you want to talk about that brother who would come up?
Yeah, so there was a brother who, when we were canvassing.
Speak loudly.
When we were canvassing, I had been talking to him. He saw the initial altercation where they slammed him up against the wall, and he started getting loud, saying like, he's in crisis. You don't have to be violent with him. Like, he needs help. Violence is not the answer to somebody who is in need of help. Started getting loud. Started like letting people know around like what's going on. Talk to the people, saying like, this is wrong. This is how they always do us. More people started to gather around. Everyone was at a very reasonable distance. But I think the thing with reasonable is they get to define what's reasonable. Because nobody was within reach of that man. Nobody that was around the police could have reached out like this or even jumped out and grabbed him. But they kept pressing up against us. They kept pressing up against me, against Roger, saying like, you need to back up. You need to back up. Keep your space. Keep the space. But everybody was far away. It was just the fact that we were now creating a presence of like, we're putting you on notice. People are seeing what you're doing. And that's what they don't like. So it is common sense, but it's also, they don't know common sense. Nobody was close enough to even touch that man, and yet we were still a threat because everyone was putting pressure and saying like, you can't just be violent. We're not going to allow this to happen, and nobody's going to say anything. People are going to make noise. People are going to be pissed off.
Was anybody recording? Was anybody recording?
People had their phones out.
She was recording. But yeah, I think in cases like that, like recording definitely helps and putting pressure on it, but also we're dealing with irrational people. They're completely irrational. They abuse their power. So it's common sense mixed with knowing your rights, also mixed with the fact that they don't respect your rights, nor do they have common sense. So.
Appreciate that story. Make some noise. So let me put you in that scenario for a second. So the police came up and said people have to move along. Let me hear a response that you might give.
Me?
Yeah. Okay, come on. Everybody's seen enough. Move along. Move along. Move along.
He's a cop.
Yes.
I'm not interfering with what you're doing. I'm just watching. I'm not touching him. I'm not interfering. I'm not in your way.
You don't get to decide that. We decide that.
I'm telling you, I'm not bothering you. I'm not interfering with what you're doing. I'm at a reasonable distance.
Can you do what we call a spontaneous legal citation without naming a case? Can you bring the law into this conversation with them?
Like Huey didn't.
Yeah, that's right. So can you bring some legal sentence into this conversation that reminds them?
I have a right to record from a reasonable distance, and I'm at a reasonable distance.
And there's the one word that they want to add in there. You have a right to be a reasonable distance away because what decided that or who decided? I can't, if I say any more, I'll give it away. Where did we find out that we had this right that was guaranteed under the Constitution? Where did we find out that it is in fact true? And where did the reasonable distance test get set up?
Case Amendment.
I don't know the name of the case.
No, that's what I said. But what could you say?
First Amendment, right?
Constitutional right? You're not
It's the
a
law.
The First Amendment gives me the right to video, and the court says that I can be a reasonable distance away, and a reasonable distance away is too far away, is far enough away to not physically interfere. This is what I say, and I say it in a calm way, not in a know-it-all way or anything like that, and I am too far away from here to get anywhere near what it is you're doing. And so this is a reasonable distance. And what I throw in, just to make them happy, because it's all about testosterone, is I take the smallest step back, and they seem to be satisfied. So you're right that they are they're violent, they're all the things you said, but there is room to play around if you pay attention to the attitudes they have. And just the last part of it is that what we did in Cop Watch, because of all the harassment we're doing in Cop Watch in Brooklyn, I've done it in other places around the country. When these situations happen, if you see somebody videoing, then what you do is you go behind them. And what we found that when the police saw that we had a backup camera that was real far away with a zoom, filming them harassing the camera person, they suddenly stopped because they realized that they were violating our rights and that it was going to be documented by somebody who could run away if they had to.
The other thing is, in the scenario that Alcha was talking about, this was up at 145th Street, St. Nicholas in Harlem, and it was at the train station, and that's also a police station. And the brother that she was describing, he was really trying to provoke this guy. He talked bad about him. I mean, he talked stuff that is politically incorrect.
He was a black cop.
Yeah, he was a black cop, and there was a black woman. He talked about them like dogs. You could see their jaws were getting tighter and tighter. And this other one came. So the cop came up, and the guy's here. He says, "You know what you're gonna do? I'm talking. If you hit me, your career will be over. You're gonna be paying for my mother's house and all sorts of." He talked about them like they were Uncle Tom's, Oreos, everything. And so then the cop would move up to him, and he's saying, you're in my space. You got to move back. And so he moved back a little bit, and it was like going back and forth. But because there were so many people around, they didn't do what they would have done if there had been nobody else around. But there were people there filming it, and so since they knew they were in the wrong, they basically had to back down. And this just gave this brother room to just talk about the way he wouldn't want to talk about the dog. But the important point is that his initial intervention brought people around. People coming out of the train said, "What's going on?" So they stood there and started. So that's the prevention measure that really allows you to protect the rights, the quote unquote rights you have that only exist depending upon conditions and circumstances.
Roger, you didn't mention the comic relief part when that pig tried to hide his nameplate.
His name was Thomas.
Right, the black guy, his name was Thomas, right?
As in Clarence, right?
Thomas and Tom.
Uncle Tom.
Tom Hanks, yeah.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. Yeah. So now, the little conversation we've had, some of the rights you talked about are gonna come into play, because we're gonna look at some scenarios and want you to tell us what was going on. Am I free to go?
No, we're arresting you for obstructing governmental administration. Everybody knows OJ.
And you know that people might get nervous if they're stopped by the police, but you're armed with this information and you're the bystander. That's why you stand there. That's why you stand there. Like, if you see them doing a search that's not legal, you say, yo, you know you don't have to consent to that, right? You know you don't have to do that, right? You know you, in this state, you don't have to give them your ID. You know, because people get nervous in these situations. People forget the rights that they have. And that's kind of, the whole point of community is that, like, you're there for people, you're on the ground, you're bearing witness to it, and you have a responsibility. If you have that information, you gotta use that information to help people and to help your people.
One of the things that we would do in Cop Watch when we had these encounters is that we didn't want that governmental interference charge. So we wouldn't talk to the person, but we brought our Know Your Rights books, and we would do like this workshop with the community around, saying it loud enough so the person could hear. You know, you have the right to remain silent. You know, you all know, if you read in this book, that you have a right to an attorney. And we were not even facing them, and the person could then hear it. So that way we don't end up with a charge. We're actually, what you said was true, because the only way to be able to handle this is to experience the situation. So we're getting ready to go into a role play, but I just wanted to say one thing about the Civilian Review Board. The reason why the Civilian Review Board isn't effective is because we have 8 million people here. There were hundreds of thousands of stops every year, and the Civilian Review Board got 20,000 complaints. 20,000. But all over the country, and it's hard to go to the police department or have these meetings. The community calls these meetings and they bring me in, and I'm talking about all the violations, and this one Southern said, I don't know why you came all the way down here from New York. We only had 4 complaints last year. So what happened to it? Well, 3 were unfounded and the 4th person didn't show up. I wonder why. I said, well, that's funny, because I was out in front of the Piggly Wiggly. You know what that is? That's the supermarket down there. I was in front of the Piggly Wiggly and I was giving out these books, and I got 45 complaints in an hour. So I don't know how your system is working, but there are people who have issues here. So we're urging people, file a complaint. Sure, nothing will happen in your case, but if we could get that number up to 200,000, then there would have to be pressure to expand it, get more investigators and more rights. But when the city can just say, well, only 20,000 people are unhappy, how are we going through all this?
Can you only make a complaint whenever there's an instance between you and a cop, or if you're an observer, can you make a complaint as well?
No, I know in Massachusetts, we spent a year when that professor, remember when Gates got jammed up there, a bunch of us went to the Civilian Review Board meetings every week, and we learned up there that anybody can file complaints, and there were 7 complaints that were filed against what happened to Gates. But guess who didn't file one of them? Gates himself. He wanted to have a beer with the cop and Obama
and the president.
So we're gonna do a role play, and I need volunteers, but no volunteers who have X t-shirts on, unfortunately. And so we're gonna set up a scenario, and we can.
Sound like the police. We need volunteers for the lineup.
Here, let me just see if there was something else. Oh yeah, here. Let's.
Would feel like this cop targeted me. I mean, I didn't have anything on me. I wasn't selling drugs. I turn away from him. That's why he comes up on me.
Well, use the word targeted. Why would I target him? Because he's black. This is, in my opinion, it's good, proactive police work.
You didn't get any drugs. You left behind a young man who distrusts you even more, and the animosity grows. Was it worth it?
I explained to him numerous times why I did what I did. He didn't want to hear it. So the only other alternative is don't stop him in the first place. You know, if I stop doing that, I'm going to have the community on my back. Why aren't you out there getting these guys?
in all fairness, the community might say, yeah, don't stop him. If all he does is turn away from you, don't stop him. Look for something more.
Probably the majority of our major arrests come from minor violations. Do you want me to take drugs off the street? This is how I'm going to do it. If you don't like the way I'm going to do it, don't look at it. But this is how it has to be done.
Don't look at it.
That's a pig.
He checked the young man's background and learned something Officer Dammert didn't even know. We learned the young man had 2 convictions for possessing small amounts of marijuana and cocaine. But on this day, of course, he was clean.
But if he didn't know that, if he didn't know, that shouldn't figure into it. Okay. Yeah. So just hang on for a second while we set things up. Unless it was a big crowd. So I don't know if you're saying there's a big crowd, like maybe when George Floyd, there was a pretty good sized crowd, and they might have come up and said, "Oh, you're blocking the sidewalk." Well, that's a violation. So somebody would have to move.
Just an instance of it, if it was a big crowd.
What's that?
I said just an instance, if it was a big crowd, then yes, somebody would have to move.
Yeah, people would have to move. It may not be the videographer.
That's standard. And when we're in the streets, we always make sure there's a path for people so the police don't have any excuse to say that we're blocking traffic.
Okay, so I need 4 people to sit in this car. So come on up, don't be shy. I need 4 people to sit in this car.
Who wants to be the driver?
Who's the driver? Who's the driver? Who's the designated driver? Now, I'm sorry, this isn't much of one, but that's your steering. Okay?
Nobody in the back. Nobody.
Come on, couple more people. Come on, let's go.
Chance, get in that car, Chance. Chance, get in the car.
Black folks know how Southwest volunteering is.
People are walking like it's a perp walker. Listen, I'm going to guarantee you that this experience is going to be really helpful because there's so many of these. I started adding role plays because people were like, yeah, man, I know my rights, and the next thing I know, I hear about them. Yeah, man, they pulled me over. So what happened? Well, they asked me where I was going. So what? You took the course, right? Well, I told them I wanted to tell them something. So the role play helps. Now I need 3 more people who are over here at the bus stop.
No excerpt, right?
No. Unless we ran out of people. Okay. So you all are over here at the bus stop. Okay, so y'all got your extra rounds?
What's her name, Rhea? Tell her to get out the corner.
Good.
Yeah, and move over.
Okay, y'all ready?
Turn the lights on.
Roll down your window. Roll down your window.
On.
me see your license and registration. Oh, this is a night stop.
Thank you.
Let me see your license and registration.
Do I have to? Do I have to show you?
Yes. You do.
What law requires you to?
You're a wise guy, huh?
What law?
The law that says whenever there's a traffic stop, a person has to produce their identification because they have reasonable suspicion that there's been a violation of traffic law.
See what is the suspicion?
Your tail light is up. Hey, look this way. I want to see your license and registration. You're welcome. Back up. Excuse me. Come on, are you going to see some ID?
Excuse me? Are you? I don't have my wallet.
Oh, so you're driving without a license. Okay, please step out of the car. Step out of the car. You all need to be quiet. Okay? Yeah, step out of the car.
You hear me asking you a question? Do I have to?
If you don't step out of the car, I'm going to remove it.
Why?
And it's going to be on video.
What right?
All right, come on, step out of the car.
What right? Refuse that.
Driving without a license. Get out of the car.
Then
get out of the car. Hey, you.
With our work. I don't think I interfere with our work.
Yeah, what about you? It's got nothing to do with it. Keep your mouth shut. If it's got nothing to do with you, keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut, okay? I don't have to have a reasonable suspicion if you are causing trouble. You're interfering with my governmental process of finding out his information. That is a legit charge. Look it up on your phone. Right, out the car. Out the car.
I can get my license.
If you don't get out of the car, you're not going to be able to get your license because you're going to be downtown. Out of the car. For a traffic violation, I have the right to remove you. I don't have to explain this 3 times. I have the right to remove you.
You didn't even.
What law?
I'm telling you one more time. You ask me what law, and you're going to get taken out of the car.
Answer the question. It's a simple question.
You're not naming what law.
You have to get out of the car, and then we can talk about the law. But you don't get to delay my legitimate orders while you stall for whatever reason. You have drugs in the car?
I'm not answering any more questions.
Oh, well, you have a lot to say, but now when I ask you a question, you have nothing to say.
This man's not bad. Smart guy.
Yeah. Now get out of the car.
No, you're not taking my friend! I'm not scared of anything! Nobody's taking my friend! I'm seriously, I wasn't acting and I could go.
I'm fluent. I'm getting paid.
I know.
OGA.
Do not call me for help.
So she's been arrested now. I want you to go over here and put your hands up against the wall.
Okay, so the cops, so that was it. They did, and everyone saw.
Spread your legs up. Spread out your legs.
Oh, yeah, because
Okay?
they're holding me.
All right, you're under arrest for assaulting a police officer. You started out with a bad taillight. So now, you want to tell us where you were going?
No, I'm answering my questions.
Oh, now you want to be silent. Okay, so stay here and be silent. And what about you? Who is this guy?
Sorry, I don't answer questions.
You don't answer questions? You just answered that.
That's correct.
All right, you get out of the car. Everybody here's been charged with assaulting police officers. Now, if you want to get out the way he did, we can do that too.
I'm being charged with assaulting police officers?
Yes. Are you a lawyer?
No.
Get out of the
But I have a right to a lawyer.
Yes, you do. And that'll all be explained to you. Get out of the car.
I'm not getting out of the car.
Okay, so we're going to take you out. This time, get on the ground. Get on the ground. No, all the way down. All the way down. Got ID on you? Nope, no ID here either. All right. We good? All right, so what happened?
I know one of them got away.
From the beginning.
Nobody got away.
That was he did.
No, let's just start from the beginning. So what was the first thing that happened? Go ahead.
Once the cop approached the car,
and you ask him, report your car because he violated traffic.
Well, did he or do we know?
We don't know.
Okay.
We don't know. So he asked him for his driver's license and registration, and he refused to respond by taking them out of his wallet.
Okay, so pause it there. What do you think?
Well, I tried to ask him what was the legal system, I guess, a precedent, and tried to ask him.
Do you drive?
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever driven been asked this cop stop and asked you to see your license and registration?
No, actually, I've never been pulled over, because I'm lucky in that regard.
So what happened today is if that happened in the real world, the cop has to see your license, registration, and insurance, what would you have done?
I think I probably would have showed it to him, but I actually didn't. I didn't know all about it there. It was in my bag.
Is that why you were? Because you didn't have an ID.
Yeah. I probably would have showed you. I had my pocket, but I didn't have time. But I don't think that was the first question that you asked, though. I don't think most of us asking for a license.
What was the first question? No, that was actually, that wasn't. But
you wouldn't tell us what even the traffic, and usually I think cops will tell you, they'll be like,
no, actually there, and you all can actually, their first role is to get the identification in the traffic stop. It's different than it is on the street, where you can refuse. And in a vehicle, you have to produce it. Now, what I do is I say, officer, you can see I'm taking out my identification, but do you mind telling me why you stopped me? And I just get real slow, but I'm cooperating, right? Hoping that maybe I'll hear something, some reason why. So, I got you in a lot of trouble.
wait, what's the first thing he did that got him in trouble? Just to get out of the car?
No,
was my answer.
No, he refused the legitimate order to produce his identification.
Okay, so what if he did start reaching into his wallet and it wasn't there? Oh, you're not, oh yeah, okay, I don't even drive, so I don't even.
But you do know people need licenses to drive, right? Oh, no, it's not.
Yeah, no, they do, yeah, no, I do actually.
I don't know why he didn't just pretend like he had a license. You know what I mean? It wasn't.
We made it a little more.
Oh, no. We don't, when we do the scenarios, we don't pretend. I mean, I have people take out the wallet.
Oh.
They produce their ID. And so when he said he didn't have one, then I just went through that because it's the real situation, just part of it. So then what happened? Oh, no, so what was going on with this officer? Who was engaged with this
crowd control?
Yeah, it was, well, I observed that people at the bus stop started filming, which I appreciated. There was one filming the scene, and there was one filming the person filming the scene.
Okay. But they weren't saying anything. They were just recording. I would have been trying to gather more people's attention to observe the situation.
So then you would have been going downtown, right?
No, I would have kept getting some pictures from the bus and let people know what was happening.
Okay. Would you have done it right there near the stop, or would you have made some other adjustment?
I would have, kept my space as Roger walked up, but I would have said, what are you doing? You're harassing us. Do you all see this?
Were you harassing?
No. So, got Chance and
Oh, right, you were on the other side of the car.
On the other side.
Oh, okay, so what was going on?
I was just said, what are you doing? Why are you, they said,
Who said it?
Huh?
Who said it?
One, two, three. Who's the third? Right. Keisha.
Tell him what your answer was. What was your answer to?
What was the question? What did you,
I said I was filming.
told the dog, so what are you doing? They told me I have a right to video. I said, get back, you're too close. And they basically went back. They went back. So I didn't have any real basis for it. They were out of the zone, and nobody was really trying to, just trying to walk up a little bit, get it back. They didn't push back around, let me keep getting closer, but they maintained their observation of what was happening.
You all worked up. You had a good time. Some cops would be like, you know, my partner is off the chain. I'm not going to allow a video of my partner being off the chain, and so I'm going to stop you all, including confiscating your cameras. And in real life, some other cops have stomped on it. All right. And who were you dealing with? What
So I was dealing with Chance and Ramsey. Yeah, so I was asking Chance, you know, where were they going? He refused to answer. I was asking Ramsey the same question. He refused to answer. You know, was telling him that, you know, why are you nervous? You know, you look at why are you fidgety? Just trying to, you know, get a charge out of him. But you know, he was listening very well to, you know, he didn't respond.
So what happened with you?
Yeah, so he said he was asking first, he was asking like where y'all going, and just like I don't answer questions. Then he was saying, why are you nervous? Just said, no, I'm not nervous. Like, why are you fidgeting? I was like, I'm staying still, I'm not fidgeting.
I thought you were going to answer the question.
Yeah, but then I was like, I wanted it to be like stated, like for the record, like if their cameras are on, so that
The prosecutor shows the video and says, members of the jury, you can clearly say, is he saying he's not nervous, that he's nervous, and we're going to bring a psychological expert in to show that his unusual calmness was a sign of nervousness.
or drug use.
Yes. What we say, remain silent. There's a reason why we say remain silent. You can't talk your way out of these things. Everything you say will what? So how can you talk your way out of it if everything you say will be used against you? How could that be possible? So it's just something to think about. Was anybody nervous? This is the only one that did it. Because even when I play the cop, I'm nervous about this situation, which is half of what I do.
Yeah.
So you might, along with spending a lot of time talking to each other, you might also be looking around to see what witnesses there are and see what police were interacting with those witnesses. Those might help the case later. And what happened?
I had I don't know, a lot of female rage. Granted, like I feel safe in here, like so that's how I don't know, and I noticed I wasn't thinking at a certain point. Like it got too real, and I was like, oh no. I even give it when I go outside and this I know now I'm gonna like whatever. But it's like I constantly do this shit. Like I feel like sometimes even what I'm realizing I'm telling you could so impact the way this went. So I was sitting in the passenger seat in real time with my friends, and cops pulled up, and I just sat there and was like, in my mind, like we are all safe, we are all protected, we are all safe, we just didn't say a thing. Like guaranteed, something would happen, and we would just be able to drive away. Like that'd be it. Like if I just don't say anything, if I just tell in my mind.
If that's your scenario, then how
I didn't act there. I was possessed. I don't know. I just wanted to come over. I was showing off. I was like, look how much I love. Because it's true to me, but it's like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Sorry if I hurt anyone though.
Were you in the scenario?
I was trying to focus on a lot
But
of
I'm
things.
saying, is that what reaction?
Have I done this before?
Could we expect if you all get pulled over?
That was like, no, because in real life, like around cops, like I'm not gonna, like they got, but then I hope, because if it really was, then between me and my God, if I'm really gonna act like that, I'm proud, like at the end of the day. Like in this is wasting your time. It's like, why are we doing this?
I'm still not sure, but go ahead.
Oh, I can say, I mean, I was surprised by your reaction, because I've been at like protests and stuff. You know, in protests, normally when these arrested people react, like, immediately arrested. It's been We've seen it been successful, so let's assume that, you know, philosophy you're going for, you know, we're in a room, not a car, but I've seen, you know, a beat response to try to break up these arrests. So I've seen that, you know, in these situations where that's reasonable. The thing that confused me was at the end, all of us got charged for assaulting an officer, including myself, because it wasn't for like.
That's never been done before. We just made that up just out of the clear blue sky. No, that's the way they clean situations. I mean, they surrounded entire people and charged them all somehow with assault.
They all get OGA too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
That's
And
legal.
And it was interesting
And
that
resisting arrest.
and resisted, assault and resisted. And you all in the car, I know you were looking out for the driver, but if I'm asking the driver for identification and you all are talking to the driver and telling the driver things that are against, that's interference with government operation. That's why when the cop pulled my friend over on the highway, you know, I didn't pay any attention. I just looked straight ahead. I didn't want to catch anything. Then he turned to ask me questions, and then that's when I said, "Do I have to answer the questions?" But
can you record as a passenger, or even as a driver?
yeah. Although we've seen a lot of videos of, like the woman who ended up dying in jail. She was trying. Yeah, was trying to record, and the officer told her to stop. And I think that's part of the reason why she got snatched up.
Because Castile's fiance videotaped the whole thing.
The whole thing.
That's how we know what happened.
But
Couldn't one of, like, for example, the passenger right here, couldn't he said, like, you used excessive force against him, even though he really didn't do anything? Could he file a complaint for excessive force? Because
who filed a complaint?
Passenger, right, the way that you arrested him, because you, again, pulled him out.
He grabbed my friend first, though.
Well,
No,
I'm just,
not talking about you.
not true, I'm just saying, because the way you arrested him right here.
The last one you taken out of the car.
Right.
The way that you arrested him, you did illegals. Could you use?
If I request for a passenger to get out of a car during a traffic stop, courts have said that police have a right to do that. Now, we've challenged it because they were only doing it for black people, they weren't doing it for white soccer moms. But the place to test that is not in the back seat of the car.
Right.
And that would have been a lawful order where the driver has already been removed from the car. So the thing to do would have been to get out of the car, find Roger, find Max Leader, you do some cases. Well, he'd be defending the assault charge that I put on you when I removed you from the car. And you'd have a defense lawyer to handle it at that time.
Oh, I should have stayed screaming though. Because if they're holding me, I'm like, what are they gonna do? Grab my voice? They can't stop my, what are they trying to do?
I don't know, stop your voice.
They do, yeah, and they do
No,
really
I
weird shit.
can stop your voice.
Yeah, that's true.
You
But
think
I
that's
don't
never happened?
My sense is I was,
No,
but
no,
I
come
don't
on, come on. We're getting wild.
They can ask a driver to step out of the car without any cause?
Without any cause?
Without probable cause. Say they just attract routine traffic stop, give them license registration. They can still ask you to step out of the car?
But that wasn't the situation. I claim to have reasonable suspicion.
That's a claim. Without,
Well,
when is there suspicion?
Well, we're going to try the case right now. The officer has reasonable suspicion that there's been a traffic violation, has a right to order the driver out.
But what was the traffic violation? Like, I still don't.
Tail light.
Oh, yeah, they did say.
That's why we do this, so that you stay in the present moment and stop tripping or letting stress wipe out your memory. Yeah, go ahead.
Legally, how do you determine what is a subjective figment of officer's imagination and what is objective reality?
It's called trial.
Trial.
How else? I can't ask questions while we're there. Listen, you know, are you a racist? Do you hold, do you have feelings of supremacy? Do you have violent tendencies? Are you sadistic?
No. Rage.
And like the cop said in the video, they know what they have to say to justify the stop. The pretext stop, they know what they have to say. They've lost some of them because the smell of marijuana used to be the other one, but since it's legal in New York, that's not, they can't use it anymore. They know what they have to say to try and avoid a suppression, getting the evidence suppressed.
They have a right to lie.
Okay, they have a right to lie to you. They don't have a right to, if they're in court, then they can't say, well, you know, they really didn't commit, their taillight was really on, but we lied to them about that, or we lied about it.
The other thing is that, like in Cincinnati and all the other places I went where we had these community meetings and I came in, these cops were always talking about what they call the 5-block rule. Anybody have any idea what that is? You follow a person for 5 blocks and they're going to do something. They're going to slide through a tail light, they're going to cut a traffic light a little too soon, they're not going to put on their turn signal, their tires may just slightly cross the line, even if they're moving around the truck, and they all swore by it. They said within 5 blocks they can nail everybody.
So what if you're, I'm a driver, but I'm saying advice to a driver, like what if you paying attention, you see you're being followed, so just make sure for like 5, 6 blocks, 7 blocks, you don't give anything. Best behavior. And then people do that, and then maybe they'll do. I don't know.
As soon as I see that there's a police car either behind me or that I'm passing one, they will pull out behind me. I check my speed, I use my signals, I brake slowly, because they even said, oh, the brakes were going, pumping the brakes. That's how that Pittsburgh Steelers player's nephew got shot and killed. The officer said he was pumping his brakes, but he was going down a big hill. The officer needed a pretext because there's a young man driving a Jaguar.
You can't pump your brakes.
A young black man driving, well, when you're black and you're driving a Jaguar and you're 20 years old, and this cop has in his mind that the only way he could be driving is if it's stolen, because he couldn't have parents or an uncle who has enough money to buy it. So that's what happened.
Wow. How is pumping your brakes give them suspicion?
You get the point? There wasn't any. That's the point. They made things up because they saw a young black man driving a Jaguar. So
Well, no, I get that, but I don't even understand, like, how is that their argument? I get, like, the other infractions is like...
Erratic.
Erratic driving. Whatever they can find. Very simple.
Right.
So, we're good.
So we're good, yeah. Yeah, so I'm glad you guys came out. I hope you guys were able to get a lot of information.
Thank you. You were good stewards.
Hopefully, you guys be able to put this information into practice immediately. The interaction with the police, there's a greater political context in terms of what's coming into being. In the particulars of that, I have Christian come up and share some additional information with you. Oh, you need the screen?
Oh, I didn't realize.
Okay. Well, while they're setting up, you all have your red book, which I hope you all read because that will definitely come in handy as you think about this process. You just don't find yourself in a situation. Imagine what you might do when you're in a situation, particularly if you're a bystander and someone might be depending on you to help save their life even. So you have the red books for your reading interest, but we also have these cards which have some basic information that we went over today. These cards are for you to actually give to other people who you interact with who also need to know some of this information, and hopefully it prompts them to think about this more closely, especially as someone who might be pulled over or as someone who is a bystander seeing somebody being pulled over or experiencing police abuse or misconduct. So take a few of these cards and feel free to give them to other people you know who could definitely use this information.
Let me get some.
I got you.
Hello, my name is Christian. I'm a part of the December 12th movement, and as Malik had alluded to earlier, you know, we just had this session to educate members of the community on knowing your rights with regards to police encounters, but we have to contextualize this with a political analysis. And so we want to talk about COP City that's coming to New York City. And so Eric Adams has recently...
To your right, you're blocking me.
Eric Adams has recently announced the plans for a $225 million training facility in Queens. This facility is intended to be training law enforcement for all city agencies, which means that, you know, there's a militarization going on of all public services in the city. In addition, the building of this facility is happening amidst budget cuts around certain social services and institutions. And the reason that's an important distinction to make is because more policing does not address an economic crisis. As we've gone over here, you know, racial discrimination and racial profiling is very important when it comes to policing. And it's important to note that black people are the most likely to be killed by the police. The reason for this, racial profiling included, but when we look at the encounters that lead to police killings, amongst them include things like violent crime and non-violent crime, in addition to mental health. And the racial and wealth disparities within these categories kind of underlie the reason black people are encountering the police in the first place. So when we talk about addressing police killing and police violence, it's important to be transforming the social and economic reality that we live in so that these police killings don't happen. So why is there a COP City going on? So something to note is that NYPD head counts are at all-time lows. And in fact, NYPD head counts are decreasing. But this hasn't stopped the number of complaints against NYPD, especially under the Adams administration, so you see those last 2 years. It's actually skyrocketing as head counts are declining. So this means that brutality hasn't stifled in the face of declining head count.
Head count, you mean the number of police?
Yes, the amount of police officers. So Adams is looking to expand the number of police officers, and that's a big part of why this facility is being built. So, you know, if you can see that this much of brutality is happening with such low head count, you know, just imagine the reality that we'll be living in with even more cops, which is the intentions of this COP City. But again, this doesn't, what's the root of this? Why COP City? Why cops in the first place? So in the Solution Times handout, you'll see, we've written about the origins of policing with regards to slave controls. And it's important to think of slavery as not some sort of cathartic, you know, will of white people to subjugate black people for no reason. It's an economic mode of production. And that policing serves a function to maintain an economic arrangement. In that time it was slavery. Now the economic time that we're concerned about is the time of gentrification, or what we call ethnic cleansing. So when we talk about the expansion of policing, we have to contextualize that in the move to displace black people from this neighborhood and to bring in wealthier, whiter residents. This is about ensuring public safety, but public safety only for a select few in this city. And in facilitating economic development through brutality. So the term COP City, it originates from the $110 million proposal for a police training facility in Atlanta. It's important to note that the budget for the COP City in New York is twice as large. And in addition, the Atlanta COP City required the development of land. So they got twice the budget, and they don't have as much work to do with regards to building the facility. So what to do about it? It's important to note that we don't just have to respond to policing in terms of being able to know our rights. We can fight and transform our social and political reality. And since the proposal for the COP City in Atlanta was announced, it's been met with a ton of community kickback. There's just been a ton of resistance to it, and we should follow suit. You know, we were able to shut down Amazon in Queens in 2019. And then again, that's another example of developments in the city that can just make economic life worse for poor black people in this country. Not this country, in this city and in this country.
In this world.
In this world. So, you know, if we can shut that down, we can shut this down. So it's important for us to, you know, join organizations to politically mobilize and understand our power as people, because who's going to stop the killing?
We're going to stop the killing.
Absolutely. Oh yes. For sure, for sure. So we have another Know Your Rights session. So kind of in this, in the vein of understanding ethnic cleansing as a problem that Bed-Stuy is facing, our next Know Your Rights session will be on labor. So all of these things are connected. You know, we even alluded to it in this presentation, right? Why is, you know, criminality an issue? This is largely to do with the socioeconomic condition of our people. And so labor is an essential question that we have to move on to with our Know Your Rights series. So look out for that. That is July 27th.
Straight.
Malik, just ask folks their reaction.
Oh, yeah. So again, thank all of you for coming. And so what do you guys think about the program? Any any further questions, comments?
Suggestions?
Suggestions? Anyone? Put your hands up.
How did folks hear about it?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a suggestion. I have more than a suggestion, I have a resolution.
Okay.
I belong to the BSO, it's a Black Society Organization, it's a 501c4 non-for-profit civic league, and we're actually in the process right now of incorporating Bed-Stuy. And then once we become...
What does that mean?
That's what I'm going to explain.
And I didn't hear the name of the
It's called BSO, Black Society Organization Incorporated. We're a non-for-profit civic league, which means we have the right to engage in political affairs. What we're doing right now, we're in the process of actually incorporating Bed-Stuy. And incorporation means that the town can become basically a sovereign entity, and it has the rights of incorporation, meaning that they can set the laws, they determine what they want to fund, they have control of all the taxes. So they can defund the police if they want and get rid of the police altogether if they want to. Or they can put in an institution to substitute it, whatever they want, whatever they choose. I already have an attorney. We're doing this in I started this in East Massapequa, but that was for school reasons, because of the zoning. But here, there's different causes, there's different motivations. So I spoke to a lot of the community leaders. I've been at a lot of these kind of type meetings, and I've got the consensus of the people that they want to do this. And so I've already started the process. We got an attorney, we're taking the survey, and then eventually we're going to have a couple of young people getting signatures. After the process of signatures, we have to get 51% of the population to sign on, and it goes directly to law. Or we get 20% and we take a vote. So people will show up for the vote and it'll go through. And then you have the right to control your schools, your sanitation, everything. It's total empowerment. If you have any questions, you can ask me. I'll handle my part later.
Absolutely.
Do you live in Bed-Stuy?
Excuse me?
Do you live here?
Yeah, I do now.
Oh, okay. Do you move every time you make it a corporation?
No, I'm originally from Brooklyn. I left and I've been living in South America ever since. I came back. I have a residence on Long Island.
Oh.
So I came to visit my daughter. I've been staying with her for a little while, so I decided to help incorporate this town.
Okay.
I'm just grateful to be here.
Okay. If there are no other questions, comments,
I have a comment. What outstanding to me about this workshop is the last half when you had the police vehicle stop. That was a reality experience for me. And the thing about law enforcement is that when you know your rights as a person in the city, the police will pick up that energy from you and respond to you in a more positive way when he can stop you in the car or see you running around the corner when he's coming up the block. The last thing I like to say is the practicality of this workshop, the handouts, reaching the brothers and sisters in the streets with our cards. That is also passing on the information that we learned today, and they will pass it on to others. That's a practical exercise I like. And the book that we received today, to educate ourselves. The more we educate ourselves, the better it is that the system will treat us with respect and with equality.
my only thing is, I would say is that at the end of everything, unless you're organized and ready to resist and push back against the tide that's coming, no amount of education, no amount of rights that we think we have will change. So when we think about the idea that militarization is increasing, is directly related or correlated to inequality rising. So black neighborhoods have always been the ones under the most police terror because we've always been the ones unemployed, socially controlled, movement stopped, policing boundaries, and now we're seeing that other people are suffering economic inequality at higher rates, drug addiction and everything else. They're now being treated like the police, same as everybody else, like black people. So the question for us is not education, but how do we organize against multiple levels of factors, economic, social, political, etc. Because we're talking about a land grab, wealth grab, everything else, that all of us are losing. So we have to really mobilize and organize in ways that say it's resistance. And part of that resistance is education, but it's not education alone. Right, absolutely. I mean, it's like you're saying, it's not enough to observe the world. We have a responsibility to change it.
Yes. A question for King. Brother, in your particular work, different from Malik and Roger's legal work, yours, you said, was community-oriented and organizing. Is there a community that in yours that you know of that has an input on police officers coming into their community? Input meaning those that have records of being detrimental to individuals, that say, no, this cop is not one that we would accept in this community. He's got to go. You know, is there a community that has done such a thing? Or is
no, there's no community that's completely done it. There have been efforts to do like a ballot initiative, sort of like what he's talking about, to change the structure of the police department and make the, for example, make the precinct answerable to people, to make captains have to be elected. The initiative here failed. Different parts of it have happened. There are some places where officers don't even have to be certified, and there have been movements to get officers certified, so when they move from place to place, their record follows. But that's something that already goes on here.
That's something that
Officers here have to be certified. But there have been movements set up in certain states that all of that information is collected, and each department that is going to hire somebody has to go back to that clearinghouse and get those records. It's not a big picture.
Question? Shahid, are you talking about in America or outside America as well?
All over the world.
Well, no. I'm talking about in the city here, where we are.
Understood.
I just wanted to, well, first I want to thank you all for participating, but I just want to add some solidarity to the Stop Cop City movement here. As soon as that announcement was made, we already started strategizing on what to do about it. So one of the groups I work with is called the Friends Service Committee. We have a branch in Atlanta that has been actively in the midst of that campaign.
What's it called?
What's that? The Friends Service Committee. It was a group that was set up by the Quakers, who were the first white abolitionists in this country. And now they're police abolitionists. So our group down there has built allyships with the Wilani Society, which had occupied the forest down there. So there were campaigns going on a bunch of fronts. There were two separate coalitions that put together ballot initiatives.